Hey everyone, I am the Chosen One Legend here, as always joined by my co-host,
Hi, I'm Kai, also known as Fascurreyn.
and welcome back to the BunchaJokahs podcast, where we're here, finally, to talk all things big spoilers about Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. And of course, we could not do this without our good friend and resident Ace Attorney expert, Oliver. Hi Oliver, how you doing?
Hey guys. Uh, yeah, thanks for having me. I was surprised when you extended a hand, and yeah, I'm happy to help and happy to talk about the fun things. So, yeah.
Well, like I said before we started, the immediate time that we started coming up with the idea of an Ace Attorney discussion, we were immediately like, we have to get Oliver on here.
Yeah,
He knows his stuff and he loves the games, and that's really what this discussion is. We're just going to talk about the game that we all really love, from my understanding. So,
exactly, yeah. I mean, in our most recent monthly podcast episode, we briefly touched on it, and I know we've talked about it in bits here and there, but this is like the full-on, full spoilers discussion for it.
yes. So there will be full spoilers for Chronicles ahead. That's both Adventures and Resolve from the get-go, probably. So if you haven't played those, now's your time to get out of here. But we will
Play them. What are you doing?
Yeah, go play them right now.
Yeah, like, please do.
They go on
good.
sale a lot.
They do, and they're available on multiple systems. I'm fairly certain, but yeah.
Indeed. But there won't be spoilers for the other Ace Attorney games, so you're fine there. I haven't even played most of them. But yeah, all in on Great Ace Attorney from now on. And on that note, actually, just to give you a bit of an introduction here, Oliver, what was your sort of start of the Ace Attorney series? How did you get into Ace Attorney in the first place?
So I've been thinking about this, and it requires a lot of setup and a big tangent, but
Go for
that's
it.
entirely in character for me. So this is all the way back in like 2007 or 8 or so. Did you ever get like the official Nintendo magazine?
Yes, O&M.
Yeah, O&M. But then there was other ones, and there was one called N Gamer, which the earlier issues, they actually had DVDs that came with them, and they were like basically just, you pop it in, and they would just be like, there'd be like reviews from like the staff members. They'd sometimes have like footage of them like playing the party games. Did some walkthroughs. I remember some of them had like walkthroughs for all the Dungeons in Twilight Princess. Oh, then there was just like reviews and preview trailers sort of thing. And there was one of them which was just, I just put it on autoplay. I had like one of the like portable DVD players for the car, just putting it on for long journeys, and then just got one of a new one, picked up like a service station, put the DVD in, and just going through the things. Like, oh, this looks cute. And then this trailer for this thing that just with this most absolutely banging soundtrack. It was the trailer for Trials and Tribulations, which honestly, like, at some point would recommend just to watch and vibe to it. You'll get the idea. It's just a really good. The actual track is based on like this literally called the special blend mix. Is this whole mix of tracks together. Anyway, the trailer was really cool. I was kind of really interested. I was like, I gotta look at this. So then I ended up just picking up the first Ace Attorney, just for DS. Loved that.
Yeah.
And then, because it wasn't exactly popular, I just ended up trying to find the others. And I didn't actually play Justice for All. I just found Trials and Tribulations and got that one. Love that. And sort of just really enjoyed it, but didn't really look into anything else after that until the trilogy came out on 3DS back in 2014, it would have been, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I got to play that again. And I actually didn't play the middle one. Cool. So I blitzed through that. Then it was like, oh yeah, there's more of these things, So we ended up picking up, hunting down a copy of Apollo Justice for DS, which is the fourth game of the franchise, which was like a year or so after it was released in the eShop, so we didn't have to spend ages hunting down in like a CEX a copy of that. And then Dual Destinies was out at the time. I played that. I played the Investigations Edgeworth. And then wasn't too long after that they announced Spirit of Justice. So, and then all of that happened. I finished up with there, and then it was like, okay, great franchise, love this, and then sort of waiting over it. And obviously I heard all the buzz for the whole Oh, there's this other one with like Sherlock Holmes in it. There's DGS. There's a whole localized DGS meme that's just rampant in the franchise. But I was like, I kind of don't want to go for the effort of doing the whole emulation and the fan translation, so maybe I'll play it eventually when it comes out. And it's like, but it might not. And then it just got announced one day, and I was just, a proper just screaming, like, this is gonna be awesome. Like, oh my god, it's finally happening. It's at office. I was like, oh, everybody stay calm. That sort of thing. That was the time. And then it comes out, and I just blitz for it, and ended up just doing so many late nighters or all nighters in some cases, just going through the entire thing. It was anyway. That was realized how much of a sort of far back reach that was, but that's my Ace Attorney experience then.
I mean, I can't blame you for binging it through, because I'm someone who rarely does that with games, but this one, there's just so many points where you can save at any point, but you don't want to, because every time there's one little bit you just want to find out, and it just keeps going. Because as I've mentioned before, I won't go too much on myself because I've mentioned it before on the podcast, but this was my first Ace Attorney game. I only picked it up because I watched Kai play it on stream, and after the first two streams he did of it, I was like, I want to play this myself now. I don't want to spoil it. So, and I'm very glad I did that, because I really loved it. Way more than I expected to. It's up there with the great games for me, things like Xenoblade, which, given our podcast name, means a lot to put it that high.
That is high praise, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
That's high
Same
praise.
kind of feeling there.
Yeah, so you had a bit of familiarity with the franchise before, didn't you, Kai? You've sort of seen a bit online and such, you said.
Yeah, I've sort of... It's one of those things that I just kind of slowly learned about over time. And then at some point a while back, I did a thing I have a habit of doing where I go onto the Wikipedia of the game and deliberately spoil myself on everything.
You're paining Oliver right now.
It is my toxic trait, I'm sorry, but I did that for the first 5 Ace Attorney games. Well, the first 5 mainline ones. The only one I've not spoiled myself on is Spirit of Justice. But I spoiled myself on all the first 5. And luckily, Great Ace Attorney wasn't a part of that. It wasn't, again, I only knew it as the one that hadn't been localized. So when that one, was announced to be localized and all that a while back, I was like, oh, that's really cool. Yeah, let's stream that. It shouldn't take that long, right?
You fool!
And here we are.
Here we are, nearly a year later.
Definitely worth it, though. Definitely worth it.
Yeah, so that's probably a good time now to just get started talking about Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. We're not going to really follow too much of a structure here. We're just going to talk through the game and bits we love. And about Oliver, why don't you start us off? What's one thing you really want to bring up to start about why you love Great Ace Attorney Chronicles?
Oh, that's
where to start.
That's
I suppose if you compare it to the rest of the franchise, it's the familiarity of it all. I've known people who they've gone back to other Ace Attorney games, and while they show their age, there's still a lot of familiarity to it. I know you're saying in the last episode of the podcast, because I do watch it, I pay attention. Matt was saying a lot of how there's a lot of familiar traits there, and how those have just aged quite well with it, as you can see with. It's just the amount of polish that's been put into the Great Ace Attorney just really shows itself. So it's very comfortable for people who are familiar with the franchise, but as a result, while it's sort of you're starting with the peak, I'd say it's and it's a bit difficult to go back without all the polish, without all the history, or just the moving around features, because I remember it still bugging me to this day. You don't get off a screen to view. You have to move through locations. If you want to get, you have to start with the front of the park, then move to the lakefront, then move to the lake cabin, and then move the bit by the lake cabin, and then move to the lakeside, and then move all the way back through each area, which is it's a little bit of old gimmicky, but
that's just a Leighton game at that point.
I mean, yeah. It's to be fair, considering how old the franchise is, it holds up really well. But yeah, so it's the familiarity of it that got me into it, and I was invested from the get-go with just the same from the first case from all the wacky characters to the music. And honestly, if we're going to focus on one thing, like, it's what makes Ace Attorney Ace Attorney. It's the characters more than anything, because
Yes.
there's so much we can say, and so much has been said, and to repeat ourselves. And there is just the first case alone has just some of the coolest characters. From just the introduction to all the folks we know. Obviously, it's a good growth of protagonist, our boy Rinosuke. Like, I love like the evolution of like his portrayal in it. He's got the like, there's that scene in the middle where he like does his first objection. It's like, hunting down his prey, and it's like
Yeah.
calm down, lad. Okay.
I love how that's portrayed for the animations. You have like his wandering eyes when he's all nervous at the start, and how
the
he
desk
snaps the
slam.
desk.
And
Yeah.
it's like it's not a slam. It's all like a little wet. Just
Yeah.
It's so good how like it shows him being nervous because he doesn't know what he's doing at that point.
No.
He doesn't even hold it. He's just yes.
He's on trial for murder. Of course he's not. It's good though. It's really good how they show like at first he is genuinely really nervous, and then as he grows through the rest of the games.
Yeah, I've been playing through with my friend at the moment, watching him play through at my place, and his reaction when he first does like a slam that actually is a proper one, he was just like, oh shit, because it's this is getting
That's
real
my boy.
moment.
That's my boy.
Yeah.
It's sort of going into talking about the characters. It's like there's a whole folks clamoring for about it's kind of like Pokemon. Like some people don't want to move on from sprites, but as Pokemon's a bit different. But with this especially, like starting from the actual franchise itself, when I went into 3D back in Dual Destinies, that just brought so much to life. Like you see the amount of, I mean, it's not like they were slacking in the sprite department. Like the amount of fun they get up to just in the first 4 games and other stuff with the extent of like the breakdowns of the character animations. There's some absolutely insane ones, and it's like this is incredible. Especially there's some in like Trials and Tribulations, very good, and there's one in particular that just makes me like laugh at like how good it is in Apollo Justice, which is just like, this is amazing sprite work. But then you look at what they get up to with the animations of the 3D and what that affords. I mean, you couldn't really pull off like the dances of deduction and that sort of thing, or just the level of personality that comes through with the smoothness of the animations. You look at, say, sticking with the first trial at least, you compare the first witnesses and how they're all like stiff and janky and all that, and then you get Giselle Brett coming on and just like that, and that's just the whole thing about her character is elegance and excellence. Like that's what her theme's called anyway. So
I think she was a great example of how because there's very little voice acting in these games. Of course, you do get it at moments. You get your objections and Giselle Brett's iconic "shut up," which I love. But
shut up.
It's so perfect. But so much of the character, because they don't have much voice acting, comes through from the animations, and that is really, and of course how well the dialogue is written. It's a visual novel. It's got to be really good and well written, which it absolutely is. But every little movement they do, every time they add a new animation, when the tone of the court shifts and they're a bit more in danger, or they decided that they're suddenly back on top, it all controls perfectly the situation and makes you feel in the moment. It's very atmospheric, I suppose.
And sort of adding to that, like I mentioned it then, but like the soundtrack as well, just it's sort of the best thing about, one of the best things that goes with the characters of the Ace Attorney franchise.
Yeah.
It's a character comes on screen, a new theme comes on, and it's sort of like, it's the atmosphere, it's like a character walks into a room and they bring a certain energy with them, an aura, and you get almost to know everything about them. It's like with that theme, you get a good vibe from them. Like the moment you see Giselle Brett and her theme plays it, it's just like, oh, she's one of them. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no. And it's like, yeah, she's gonna like talk down to everyone, and then it starts gonna be yikes, but that's different parts entirely. But and then you look at the other themes. You've got like Kazuma's theme, which
yes.
is just
Yeah.
that perfect level of just like, this guy's cool. He's cool. He's so cool.
Yeah. That's a good way of summing it up.
I'm sure Kai especially has many nice things to say about it, but his theme, it just has a determination of just the guy who is cooler than you, but is also just a good bro.
Mm.
I mean, you look
Yeah.
at like
He's got a nice...
so many, and then one of my personal favorites is like Susato's theme with the flower blooming in the new world. Is my friend described it as like it's like a reassuring hug, and it's like, ah, that's so
fits.
true.
Yeah.
And it's like, it just says so much about the character just with the theme. It's like another part of the character on top of their dialogue and animations. The music that accompanies them is just it's such a big part of the game and how it all comes together as a whole package, really.
Yeah, and actually to transition a bit into talking about Susato now that you bring her up, I mean, she was a really great assistant to have in the game, and one thing that I found quite interesting going back to the first Ace Attorney is that how, of course, your assistant in that game, Maya, she's a spirit medium. She's not trained in law at all, and even the same with the next assistant you get, Emma. She's a scientist, but she's not trained in to do what she just sort of ends up being brought along with Phoenix. But in this game, you've got Susato who is doing the job she's meant to be doing. She is a trained judicial assistant, and I really love how that works for her and how she is Ryunosuke's support at all times. How she has her book of her tome of knowledge of all things about humanity and law, which is perfect. And the little animations that come with it as she flicks through it, it just sort of, like you say about her theme, it's reassuring. She's always a reassuring character to have with you when the trials get crazy, which they do a lot, so...
Oh, God, yeah.
That's Ace Attorney.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've seen some things saying that, she's a bit boring in comparison, but she's handy. She's not like a spirit medium, she's not a scientist, she doesn't have any mood matrix technology or anything like that. She's just helpful and handy, and it's hard to get lost in the game. It's down to more like the mechanics and how it's put together, but you can always just go and check the location screen and then just, Susato, where haven't we visited yet? Or where haven't we visited for a while? It's just like, oh cool, okay, we just go here. Or you go back to wherever your like home base is and just have a chat with her. And it's like, oh, go do this. It's just, oh wow, an assistant who's an assistant. That's very handy.
Yeah. If nothing else, then she does a very good job of being the assistant in the game. Like she does that very well, if nothing else. So.
And she doesn't get accused of murder, which is nice.
No,
That's true. Yeah. I do find it interesting as well how like I think she appears in the game almost as much as Ryunosuke, if not possibly more, because she's the only one who appears in every single chapter of the game.
Yeah, actually.
Ryunosuke doesn't even appear in every chapter because of Resolve Chapter 1. So, she's canonically the main character now, just decided she's most important.
Susato's not in the first case, that's Ryutaro, Guy. What are you saying?
Oh, of course, yeah. No,
Yeah.
Susato's in the
It's
stands,
the cousin,
Yeah.
She's in there after. She had a chat with Ray, but it was Ryutaro, that manly man, who was...
Yeah, Ryutaro
Of
really
course.
took the stage.
But, I mean, going back to theme, like, it's the whole... I love me a good thing with leitmotifs. Talking about the character themes and all that. Like, when you're listening to the Ryutaro objection theme, and you hear the little strings of, like, the instruments from Susato's theme playing, and it's just like...
Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
And then, speaking of, like, leitmotifs, it's going back to Kazuma, and then you've got his amazing theme, and then you have Nocturne, which is the same theme, and I suppose that's going on, from 1 to 2, right? Like going into case 2, which does things very differently, but at the end of the day, like Kazuma was the tutorial helper, so
Yeah.
and then case 2 happened. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
I had an inkling that that Kazuma might be dying. I hadn't seen outright confirmation, but I'd seen sort of talk around it to the point where I sort of figured it might be the case. I did not expect it to be so soon. Not just the second case, but the moment you start the second case, and you're like, oh shit.
Like it's immediate, yeah.
They make you rely on him so much. They do such a good job in one case of making you love Kazuma. You know, it's in the few hours that you spend over that case, you really start to depend on him, and you, much like Ryunosuke does, you sort of idolize him yourself. And then suddenly he's gone, and it just changes things completely. And like you say, the theme in particular, when the sad version Nocturne kicks in, that's when it really hits home for you that he's gone for now. But yeah, Case 2 definitely hits you hard.
It did.
When
I did it, I was slumped in my chair for the rest of that stream.
I'm sad I missed that.
I just remember the like, no shot, no.
Yeah, that's
No,
it.
no. And it was just like, and then just the amount of like eggy smojis in the chat and all that, just like Kofi is, because he was just like, he's not dead, he's sleeping, and it's like,
He's just sleeping. It's fine.
yeah, that's the thing, which is, I guess, also you're into that of how it sort of does things differently. At the end of the day, there wasn't a trial in Case 2. It was just pure investigation, which doesn't really happen. Which was like,
they normally dedicate entire spin-off games to that, some of which don't get localized still.
You really went there, Kai.
I mean, maybe, there's a whole thing about, I think there's a lot of things and theories about it. Like, the first Investigations game didn't do too well in comparison, and also the first Great Ace Attorney didn't do too well in Japan either, but I think there was a lot of feedback for just like, oh, wait, this is an incomplete game. Why would you only still as one? And then when Resolve came out, it was like fully lauded, and I think it was a good job that they released it as a collective like this. It's a set of chronicles, because while we're grumbling about like, it's gonna be ages until the next episode, or if we're watching other people play, it's like, Kai's going on like a several month break. It's gonna be like, we gotta. And then you think about it, it's like there was like a 2 and a bit year gap between Adventures and Resolve. So
oh god, yeah.
I cannot even begin to imagine how painful that must have been for the Japanese players at the time. Like, seriously, that just doesn't sound fun.
Not at all. But
Poor people.
to talk about the investigation section, sort of a bit in general, is I really enjoy those, but I think it'd be easy to sort of see those as sort of like there's less to them than the courts. There's no big objections and the intensity there. It's a bit more chill usually, but they still manage to keep it really interesting and keep your interest throughout them. Partly through, of course, the writing, which carries itself. It doesn't matter if nothing big is happening at the moment. Just watching these characters interact is charming. But then they throw in these gameplay moments like the Dances of Deduction and Herlock Sholmes. I think this is probably the best time to bring him up now.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Just
what a legend.
it was the whole. Just I remember the reveal localization. Just like, wait, it's a game of Sherlock Holmes. Sure, I guess. And also, his assistant is a tidy girl instead of a Watson.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the localization came out, and it's like, wait, what's Herlock Sholmes? That's not what it's called. And then, I remember scoffing at it myself. I was like, oh, for God's sake, I'm not gonna be able to take this game seriously. And then now, I'm just looking at my bookshelf right now, and I've just got a complete collection of Arthur Conan Doyle, and it's just like, I have trouble reading it now. It's like, wait, Sherlock Holmes, that's not right. Wait, no, it is right. No,
Yeah,
no.
I've mentioned to you guys that I'm sort of learning my lines at the moment for a play of Hound of the Baskervilles I'm in, and every time I'm practicing through them, I keep saying Herlock Sholmes instead, and I'm like, shit, I can't do that on stage. It's just so ingrained in my memory, but it's because he's so great, and you really learn to love him. I had a completely different expectation going into the game. From like all I'd seen was like gifs of him spinning, and and
that sums him up. To be fair,
it does.
That's good.
And the little Capcom E3 presentation they did, where they showed off the first Dance of Deduction, and we see him getting things wrong. And I was expecting him to just be a complete idiot, like a piss take of Sherlock Holmes, who is just annoying throughout the game. You just got to keep correcting him. But even from the first case, when you're sort of unsure, they make you like, is he an idiot? What is he? You know, even from you still immediately know that there's more to him than is first let on. And the way that you gradually see him more, and you see those glimpses of intelligence, and it pays off at the end when you see him at his full game in his element. It's just done so well. It's such a consistent character throughout all the cases he's in.
That's sort of, it's what's having the whole story being all interconnected just helps out for it. Because at the end of the day, with the older Ace Attorney games, they weren't usually all connected. They were quite more episodic in a way. I've seen a comparison of like Great Ace Attorney are like, you know, movies, whereas the other ones are like TV series, which is I kind of get that. Because I think about, especially in the trilogy, stuff like Justice for All, for example. There's 4 cases in that game, and none of them are connected. They're just their own things, but they are, you know, pretty decent by themselves, and that's a whole different case entirely. Well, you know, I'm annoyed that I skipped it initially, or at least didn't realize it existed at the time, but that has some of the best things in it. Like, people say that the last case of that game is like one of the best in the franchise, and I'm inclined to agree with them. But at the same time, it's its own thing. Whereas with Great Ace Attorney, it's all connected. It's all, you know, all the stuff that was brought up and in case 1 of Adventures carries through, and it's sort of you get connected with the whole story, all the characters. You see a lot of them again, a lot of recurring characters. You spend a lot of time with them, and basically it leads to a lot of fun things on repeat playthroughs or viewings in this case.
Yes,
you know, it's always fun, especially when you're watching someone else. Like, it's, you know, technically, like, watching Kai's streams were sort of like my 3rd playthrough, I guess, because it's just with a fun audience, and yeah, that's honestly, watching people play the game is very fun. If only just to like, wait a minute, the amount of things in the DMs, let's just say, while the streams were happening. the amount of times Matt and I have shared the "well, yes, but actually no" gif every time you started theorizing. That was there's been a lot of those.
Or just like the gifs of the character just sweating when he's sort of on the edge of something. There's so many things that, I mean, if you had looked through back in hindsight, that are like when, I know this is getting quite ahead of ourselves for the second game, but that picture with Cicero and the suitcase, and everyone at the first time is like, wholesome picture, let's take a screenshot of this. And then you're like, oh god, those who know, it's one of those
things.
Who know,
those who don't know.
Oh god. That traumatized me.
Yeah, there's so many things like that. Just, you look back and it's like, wait a minute, that makes sense now. Or, wait a minute, oh shit, that makes sense now. That's so cool. Wow. Sorry.
But to sort of go back... Oh yeah. But to go back to sort of Sholmes and the investigations, what did you think, Oliver, of Dance of Deduction being this sort of new gameplay mechanic that isn't, as far as I'm aware, in any of the other games in any form?
No, it isn't. Like, it certainly spices up the investigations or does something new with it, because there are things that we do in other games which are interesting enough. Like, there's a mechanic introduced in Justice for All, which is sort of, I guess, the equivalent, where it's the Cyclops, if you know what they are, which I don't think you've got to yet. It's basically a sort of kind of interrogation/interview sort of thing, where you basically just need to present statements or evidence to get more information. But a lot of the times you won't have all the information or evidence right away, so you'll have to like leave the thing and come back later. So that can be, as much as I like the sort of concept and idea of them, but it's not quite. They do tend to be a little of a roadblock at times, whereas the dance productions are all fluid. It's all in the moment.
Yeah.
I'd say I wouldn't say the most difficult thing in the world, but you're sort of too swept up in the music and the motions of it all.
Yeah.
If
I mean,
anything, it's a lot.
Go on.
It's a lot like the different mechanic in Apollo Justice, where that's a whole thing about. His whole thing is about focusing down on people's tics and sort of thing. And it's the
Right.
sort of closest it's ever got to that. Like, you got to like watch out for what people are saying and see if they have like a nervous tick or something when they're saying something. So you like pick out, are they lying, or do they have a reaction and can say more about this? I suppose that's the closest they've got to in the past, but this whole thing, the presentation of it and the dynamic camera movement and everything, again, another benefit of 3D. Just
Absolutely.
so fun.
They really took advantage of it because, like you say, it's gameplay wise, it's quite simple. I don't think I ever made the mistake in a Dance of Deduction because it's usually just rotate the camera and you see the obvious thing, right? It's usually what it boils down to. But as you were saying, the advantages of 3D and how cinematic it is, particularly with some of the later ones like Anti-Gravity Machine, which is
But when he does that like
Crazy.
walk, that like stride through like the floaty
Yeah.
items, it's like you guys are just showing off now.
yeah. They do
Nice,
some
so
really
much
fun
of it.
things. How they involve the different characters, like Winslow Sato joins later, and we won't talk about the final one. I think we'll save that for its own thing. But yeah, they really have fun with them, and they never stop. They never get repetitive because there's always such unique flair to each one. I think is the important part of them.
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely sort of make each one unique and fun to make sure that it's always something interesting, because it very easily could have become monotonous if they didn't do it right. But luckily, I think they absolutely aced it. You know, there's a very good amount of them without there being too many. They, like you say, they flow well. They're very amusing. It's just, it's very good.
Yeah,
And
because
as we
they're so-
discovered, oh, sorry, go on, Oliver.
Sorry. Let's say because it's so. It's kind of a good, but so infrequent because you're sort of looking forward to. Like, oh, we're doing one for this trial night. Let's go.
Yeah.
As opposed to like oh, another one. Oh. It's like a
Hangman's Gambit. It's the opposite.
Let's not go. Let's not. Let's no. But yeah, I mean, again, just watching other people play it, and it was always fun to say, oh, we get up to one soon, and you were like, oh, we're doing a dance of deduction. It's like, yeah, he's got the bug now. He's enjoying it.
And as we discovered, they make great April Fool's videos. So
They do. There's great content to be had there.
So much good content out there.
for sure. But another new mechanic, sort of moving a bit towards Case 3 stuff here, that was introduced in this game, was summation examinations, which we've seen first in Case 3. And they might be some of my favourite moments in the game, even if it's just because of the music alone,
Oh my
which I've listened
God.
to an ungodly amount of times.
It was one of those just like, oh, what are we doing here? To the like, oh wait, there's gameplay. I'm too busy like bopping my head. I should read. It's hard to read this things. Ah,
Yeah.
that's another case of music just being such a high quality. Like for something so not necessarily not mundane because it's part of a trial. It's never going to be mundane, but as like a new mechanic to make things feel different. Because at the end of the day, it's that's when we've got to London in the British courts and it's something different. And while there has been sort of the group discussions before in, well, Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright, it would have been, it was sort of like the group cross-examinations. But this whole thing is the jury system, making it very clearly that it's something different. I thought it was done really well. Yeah, the summation examinations, there's a lot you can get from that. I mean, again, most of the music, I saw a thing, like, not to get too much into music theory, because that's going to take a while, but how the introduction bits, there's actually 6 like versions of a melody in sequence, like the 6 jurors.
Oh,
There's six of the
interesting.
to
That's
put it into the
great.
context. There's 6. I have a pen. I have an apple. and then
Oh,
and then
no.
it goes into the like chorus, which is sort of like
Yeah.
the response, and then of course like which is like that's just such a good theme alone, but also as a mechanic I like that. I suppose
It's
that's
definitely
it.
an interesting twist where you're not sort of finding a contradiction through evidence, but you're putting one statement against another.
Yeah,
I think
that's
that was
it.
a really
It's more than
clever way of
just
doing it.
evidence. It's basically a case of just you want to tip the scales. I was trying to find another word, but I'm just going to use that anyway. You want to tip
Yeah.
the scales, and a lot of the time it presents itself as just okay. It's just a case of finding things to change with people's opinions. They're just like, oh well, if you can prove that they might be lying or they're not a good person, then I'll just vote the other way. And then you just got to find another statement that proves that, or at least suggests otherwise. And then it was satisfying to make the connections together. And to be fair, I found them quite difficult personally. It was a lot of like,
that
oh,
sounds-
how do we connect these together? And something different as opposed to just the same gameplay loops that it could have fallen into.
Yeah, and it also allowed us to get even more characters in there. I like how it both utilised previous characters and gave them a second chance when we might not otherwise have seen them again. But also how we got these weird one-off characters that each works like Corn Girl. What was that about? I don't
Corn
know, but they could
Girl,
do
let's
it.
go.
Blackcord.
I mean, I always thought like she was part of that family of the old guy and the old lady that you see in the other trials, and how like those two were both very consistently. They said like important things, like very important things. But yeah, I mean the jury, like you say, like how they interacted with each other was great, and because fair play, like just saying fair play is part of my regular vocabulary. So the amount of, now I literally cannot think of saying that without going Bruce afterwards. Like it's cursed. But yeah, I do really like the concept, because you might think like, oh, you know, just pushing. Essentially, you're putting one statement against another. Like, oh, it's such a simple concept, but you know, the fact that they use all these different characters on the jury to do it, and then you get to sort of see them argue and that sort of thing. It's a really cool concept. I'm really glad they introduced it. And hey, if they do another Ace Attorney game, even if it's a mainline one, honestly, just bring that back as like a regular thing at this point. I thought it was phenomenal.
Yeah,
Phoenix and
Yeah.
Co. visit London, and it's like, I'll do some law here. And it's like, hey, so, I mean, I don't know. If they want to really tie it in, they could do something like.
Yeah.
I
Well, the
reckon
Phoenix has already done a trial in London, and they didn't do it for some reason. I'm
Ah.
very upset.
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah.
terrible.
Well, do it again, but
Do it again.
better.
Yeah, I feel like that one's definitely one that they could bring into the main series, maybe a lot more than the uniqueness that is Herlock Sholmes' Dance of Deduction. I would love to see it return.
Yeah.
I think also, Kai, that on the topic of, we was talking sort of a bit case through here, I know that you really loved McGilded and the whole sort of part of that trial where you win, but at what cost, basically.
Yeah, I loved this. You know, it's definitely not like the most outlandish way that a trial could have gone. You know, it sounds like something that definitely would happen once or twice across the series.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh my god, it's, you know, unheard of. But the concept is still brilliant, and the way they delivered it. I think that the main thing that really did it for me was that this is Ryunosuke's first trial in London, and it happens to him there. Like, so, you know, we're still sort of
Yeah.
easing into it. We're getting used to the London system and the jury and everything like that. So we're still sort of familiarising ourselves as the player and as Ryunosuke to understand what's going on. So the fact that the whole time you're immediately being duped, it's like, you know, you're almost none the wiser because it's your first time there. That's just how things work. So from a narrative standpoint and for the player, I think it's like a really cool concept that they did it that early in the game when they did.
I was definitely... Oh, sorry, go on, Oliver.
No, I'm still trying to find my words there. Go on.
Okay. I mean, I was, you know, like you say, you feel like Ryunosuke does. I was playing this whole time like, this is a different carriage to the last one, isn't it? Am I going crazy? Maybe it's part of the game. Maybe it's some mechanic, or I don't know what's happening. And when it comes to the end, then you're like, it asks you specifically, do you want to object, even though you're about to be declared innocent? I'm sitting there like, what do I do here? You feel the same thoughts that Ryunosuke does, and it really puts you on the spot and in the moment, and it impacts you quite a lot.
Yeah, it's again our experiences, just different experiences, because it's sort of because you were taking like breaks between them, and I guess you didn't notice the inconsistencies, but like myself and like a couple of other people just messaging us like, I remember seeing it, I was like, that definitely wasn't there before.
Yeah.
And then because I know like not just yourself, Kai, but I know other people were just basically on board until the end. I remember one of the messages you said something like, God, we killed it. It's like practically doing this trial for us, and we were just like, well, yes.
I
Funny
think that's why I like him so much, because he played me. Like, he didn't. It wasn't even just Re-Escape. He played me, because of course, I will, give an excuse to myself that it was because the stuff that he changed largely happened between streams, which was like a week apart.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that I just forget, like, very tiny things. But I do recall saying something like, oh, how come I hadn't investigated this blood before? But then not putting two and two together. So when it finally did connect after I'd been praising McGilded on knowing what to do so much, I was like, damn, this is like a strong character. I can't wait to see what he does in the rest of the games, in the rest of the chapters.
I mean, to be fair to you, Kai, even though I was playing it across like 2 days or something, and I did notice the changes, I still wasn't fully suspicious of McGilded even. I guess I just didn't expect you. I'm sure this has probably been done somewhere in past Ace Attorney games, but of course I haven't played them. So I didn't expect you to just be defending an actually guilty man. So right to the end I was like, wait, is he actually... He's not, surely. But yeah, he was, and that was what made it fascinating.
Yeah, it's one of those. I suppose it's going the whole thing really, where it's testament to the game's writing and how it's put together. Just you can have you can. I know some people are just off the fact it's like, I don't like this guy. I don't trust him. To other people, and that's not just McGild, but loads of other characters. They see them come up and it's like, okay, this guy's like clearly up to something, and then other people just like wait over and like, wait, what? I didn't expect that. To other reactions are just like, oh, of course, it makes sense, and it's just how people can put things together, and it's the whole thing of just that happens quite frequently. Ace Attorney, that you may have put the pieces all together, and then you may stumble because you're trying to present your idea before the game has all the information to let you present that idea. And then, of course, there's always the other end of the scale where it's just you haven't put it together and you don't know the angle you're supposed to be thinking at. And that's just part of another thing of a franchise I love so much. It's just so much, like, I sometimes, I'm either side of the fence, really. Sometimes I'm just like, yeah, okay, I see what's happening here. To other times, just like, oh, wait, is that where we're going with this? And sometimes I'm just like, do I have to present everything because I'm stuck? And then I sit and look through all my evidence and think about it and look at the question and look at how it's specifically worded, and it's like, oh, right, okay, I think I have an idea now.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
just as an introduction to the whole thing, and just really cool introduction to London in general in that case.
Yeah, I mean, something to talk about in general is that I really love sort of the setting of not just London, but going back in time to sort of an earlier time period. As much as I'm enjoying playing Ace Attorney in the modern day, and there are definitely advantages to that with things that you can do, like with science and technology being advanced. But I think the lack of that really makes things interesting and makes not just how you approach the cases differently and how you go about solving things, but it's also just like a fascinating era to explore, and the fact that you can sort of then coat that in so much sort of, I guess, Sherlockian history as such, and all the references that are in there, which you pointed out quite a few to me, and not only that, but real historical references to things like the Great Exhibition, which was a real thing, or the Treaty of Friendship between Japan and England, which was a real thing, and I found that kind of thing really added to selling you on this world, was how it was steeped in both real and historical history, fantasy history, yeah.
And of course, Victorian London means you can get Victorian pickpockets, which means we get Gina Lestrade, so...
Exactly.
Yes! Like, best character. I will not be taking any arguments.
You won't be receiving any here.
Yeah, you're chill.
And also part of the whole, just I guess going on that and all the recurring. Sure, you have a one-off like jury members or witnesses, and then again, mention Bruce Fairplay. He ends up becoming a jury member later on. It's like, hey, it's that guy, and then you can have some funny dialogue interactions. But the recurring folks, the recurring cast, if you've got Gregson, Gina, Strongheart, even just. In fact, we get to see so much of their characters come along, and of course, we've gone talking about trials in London and characters, and we've not even mentioned Barak van Zieks, have we? Like,
no. Right? Yeah.
Just it's whatever. You see his design, it's just like, okay, this guy's just a complete edgelord. What's he gonna do? And then he's just, throwing wine bottles, just sort of his amazing flourishes. And again, part of the whole animations and atmosphere, his theme is intimidating. And then he just drops the boot on the table, and it's like, so that's why people like him. Okay.
It's partly what I love so much about how it. Of course, you've got Ouchie in the first case, who is just. I mean, he puts you on your feet, and also that, but he's also a bit of a moron at times, But that's sort of what makes he's very bumbling. He's so screechy, and that he's just sort of desperately clutching the entire time. And then you get to Barak von Zieks, who's just completely in control, and it's night and day. And it's your feeling of, okay, this is getting real now. This is a real threat to me. It's very hard to put Barak, on the edge. He no matter how far it gets, he rarely feels like he's not in control of the game, and that's what makes it so tense throughout the entire time you're competing with him.
Yeah, he's a very different vibe to Edgeworth, whereas Edgeworth feels like almost like a regular person, Phoenix, with just a lot of confidence, and sometimes Edgeworth will get things wrong. Barak feels like he's basically always in control, like you say. The only time where he does freak out is when it's something genuinely big that, he wasn't aware of. It does definitely feel like he's got a very prepared attitude about him, though. So I do like how they differentiate him from other prosecutors in the series.
Also, what I liked about him, just even from the get-go, is that he wasn't necessarily evil. You get some prosecutors just no, we get a guilty verdict no matter what. I don't care. That's not truth. I'm gonna throw all this false evidence and updated autopsy reports and just all these other things to just make you wrong.
Yeah.
There are times he just goes all right, no, we're actually gonna get the right answers here. And he's ultimately he's not, while he is against you on the opposite side of the table, he's also still after the truth. And I liked how that was presented early on, at least, because even in the case 3, where he's just clearly losing, he's clearly after the right thing. And then is it bold how it just ends on oh wait, he was right, and he was kind of trying to find the truth, and he just got shut down. So it's sort of he's a very interesting start to character, and generally a very strong character throughout the whole thing. Again we see more of him, just be it from entertaining things to hearing more about his whole shtick, as it is.
Yeah, just have the fact that he has this whole mythos around him of the Reaper of the Bailey, that adds him in this air of not just a threat to you, as he's a damn good prosecutor, but also that there might be more to him. Is he going around killing witnesses, or is there some curse around him? As you discover later on that there isn't, but it really makes him there's an element to him that seems larger than life, and that adds to sort of the threat, the constant threat when you go against him.
Ouchie is still best boy, though.
Well, yeah, of course. No disrespect to Ouchie. I didn't mean to offend anyone there. I know Ouchie has his fans.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I am. If Ouchie has 100 fans, I am one of them. If Ouchie has one fan, that is me. If Ouchie has no fans, then I am dead.
Yeah. So,
okay.
I think then after that, we are talking the story being all connected and stuff. There's sort of mixed opinions on the filler cases, as it is. All the stuff with the Garrett Debs and Soseki, which by the way, as a big fan of the work of Natsumi Soseki, it's just I didn't even know he was in the game, and I'd see it and was like, wait, is this no? What is that guy? Oh wait, what? And then you look into it, and because it's its own sort of weird time period, because while it was a turn of a century, that he actually the author himself did visit London for 2 years, so it's a nice way of adding that new fuss. It doesn't quite line up with a few facts and presentation there, but at the end of the day, we get a really cool character with fun references, and honestly some really fun and nice bits of breathing room between the bigger cases, because I feel, especially in adventures, going straight from case 3 into case 5, it's nice to have a bit of rest period between the two, because they are obviously massively interconnected, 3 and 5. So to have that sort of relatively normal Ace Attorney-like case, to the point of the whole, contrivances of the outcome of that, which I agree with you. It was like, but wait, what? That's stupid. That's really, are we doing this?
Really?
And it was like, this is Ace Attorney kind. It's like, yeah, sure. This is Ace Attorney.
Yeah.
But yeah, but that was, I liked that sort of like stop for breath moment. Just, still have an entertaining case with all of these fun characters, quirky little things, and just doing its own thing while sort of taking a break from the overall narrative that was being built.
Yeah, it's definitely, even though it wasn't as vital to the others, it was still all connected. There were still little things that will come into play later, and the way it sets things up. But it's nice to have a bit more of a chill case with just some wacky characters and have some fun. Not to mention that Case 4, as you mentioned, introduces a lot more of the recurring characters in the bigger light. Like we get our first proper look at Iris in Case 4 and Gregson, and which of course are two fantastic characters. And no case is like, I wouldn't say any case is a dud at all. It might not be as important as the other, but it still has a lot of value to it. I would say
It's still better than Turnabout Big Top. Which
True. And I did a little reading on this one. Apparently, Case 4 of Adventures and then Case 2 of Resolve were supposedly meant to be one and the same case originally, but then they had to split it up because there was so much going on in Chapter 2 Resolve alone.
Right.
So they split it up. But with that in mind, it would have made sense that it still would have linked to the overall picture in the end. But yeah, in the end, the main sort of reason that Case 4 existed in Adventures was to introduce those big characters, like you say, and just get you more familiar with things and investigate London, really. Areas that would then be reoccurring.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sort of going to be jumping a little bit ahead here, because I think we've sort of discussed most of the details from Case 5, really. We've sort of gone over a lot of those. But when we start Resolve, and we mentioned this a little bit, but I thought it was such a clever way to do a tutorial by having you play as Susato, or Ryotaro, and having that as the perfect way to just introduce you to things for the first time without it getting boring, but also that introduced you to a character we have not properly mentioned yet, and this gave you our first proper look at him, Yujin Mikotoba, and having him as your assistant in that first case, which sort of, at the time, you don't realise how important he's going to be, but that first case did such a good job of getting you into Resolve and preparing you for what was going to be ahead, without you even really realising it, which is sort of what's so genius about it, I think.
Again, it's a whole benefit of hindsight, looking back on things, just the discussions going on and certain little bits of lines of dialogue here and there, and again, just like how characters are presented, what's been going on. Like, some people clearly know more than they're letting on. It's like the whole again, jumping ahead, but it's like after the trial's finished, and it's like, like Many Man was about to say something, and then he gets gets hit with a Seishiro slam. It's like, thanks, dude, you saved us from a problem there. And then it's like, wait a minute.
Oh yeah, I liked the case though. I mean, it's a good mystery still. It brings back a lot of characters that you might not be able to see for the rest of the game, like Hosonaga.
You hadn't even mentioned Hosonaga, yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool case where, of course, the rest of the game's going to take place in London because we've got a lot of plot points to solve there. But it's nice that they did still have this opening one in Japan, new prosecutor kind of, cool new music, Ouchie's return. Just overall, it did a very good job of reintroducing the game and getting you familiar with things while still, calling back to some characters you might not have seen for a little while.
Can I just also specifically mention how they use... I believe they used Kazuma Nocturne for Ouchie's haircut in that case, which is just amazing.
The top 10 saddest anime deaths. Just that entire... it was one of those, setting up as, he's not actually going to, seppuku in court. And it's like, he's not. But then it's like, he's going for the top... and then it's just a presentation for it when it's just, but not, and then it cuts to everyone like praying for it. It's just that is like the peak of like what the series can do when it comes to like comedy. Because at the end of the day, it's all the mystery and everything. The writing and the comedy is also just really top notch as well. Just with all sorts. Like
It absolutely is.
Yeah, talking about as I made the joke plenty of times, like Kazuma Nocturne, no. Top Knot Nocturne. That's a real show.
Turn around top knot. Yeah, it's very good. I mean, there's also the character of Ray Membami in that case, who, and I've got a small gripe with, because I mean, good character to be fair, fun, whatever, roommates, but it annoys me with the cover art that she's like right at the very front of it. So I thought she was going to be like a huge character in this game, like the Sasato of the game maybe, and it's like no, she's just like a one-case character.
Yeah,
like,
there's a few things like that.
fine.
You get some with like got like a really grandiose thing, and then nothing comes of it. But I don't know about that unnecessary. But
Yeah.
The game did
Still
not
like the
remember
character.
her. Yes.
maybe that's the whole thing. Like you're supposed to remember her, but we didn't.
Yeah.
But you know what? That just adds even more potential for a third game, more things to explore. You know, you never know.
True, very true.
I mean that's all. I hope that the reception that it's received in the rest of the world does sort of light a fire under the franchise, because it's sort of been asleep since Spirit of Justice, which I realized came out like nearly
2016
yeah,
or
it's
something?
about over 5 years ago, which makes me feel
God.
really weird. And then this one, obviously, like I mean, Resolve itself came out in 2017, so you know this franchise has been asleep technically
been a while.
for a while.
Yeah.
But I do hope it's a little fire underneath it. And yeah, just give us more. Be it Ace Attorney 7 or Great Ace Attorney 3, please.
Yeah.
I
Well, that's another thing I read about, and it was the creator of the series talking about how like he's kind of happy to be done with Phoenix Wright's story now. Like he's done enough. You know, they keep bringing back these characters for the Phoenix Wright games, and like he's happy for that to be done. And he said like he's enjoying doing the spin-offs. You know, things like the Leighton spin-off and Great Ace Attorney and stuff. Like, you know, they have explicitly, you know, stated more interest in that than the main series. So, it's, you know, even if it's not Great Ace Attorney necessarily, like, I think we might be able to expect spin-offs in the future still.
I mean,
I just want them to port the 3DS games to Switch.
that yeah, because
Yeah.
it's because after Trilogy, it comes to a case of like, do you want to play Apollo Justice? Then hunt down a DS copy like I did, or get it on the 3DS eShop, and then
Which is dying.
Yeah.
I know. I'm pretty sure it's Dual Destiny Spirit and Justice are at least on mobile now.
They are.
So you know, it's not inaccessible, but like it would be nice. It's like all the Final Fantasies on Switch for me. I've got like 10 different Final Fantasy games on Switch. So that's like my system, my go-to system, and waiting for the Pixar Remaster is a different case entirely. But like, if I could have every single Ace Attorney game on a single system, that'd be pretty cool. I'd like that.
Yeah.
And it's just such a good fit for the Switch as well. You know, it's a Switch is a very good tool for visual novels, especially. You know, just pick it up, put it down. It's perfect for it.
But to sort of go back to Great Ace Attorney specifically here, and I'm sort of going to tie a few things, lump them a bit together here, so we don't go on too long.
Okay.
But what do you guys think about? This is a big bit, you know, but the climax of the story, which turns out to be to do with Case 3, Form 5, the Professor, and Kazuma's return, and Kazuma's father being involved. That's sort of when the real story of the game kicks in, what everything's been building to. Case 3 is when it starts to unravel.
Oh boy, Case
And
3.
it just gets crazy from that point. It is edge of your seat the entire time for the rest of the game.
Like, Case 3 by itself is impeccable, and it was playing at the time. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, towards the end of it, that it sort of goes from the central thing about harebrained sort of things into the professor side of thing, which is nice that it settles on the finale sort of through line going through, and again, part of the whole connected story thing that it's been building up for that ever since the first case. It's not
Yeah.
nothing of important. But by itself, I just remember finishing that case of that was incredible, and I don't know how they're going to top that. Just that case by itself, I mean, again, talking characters alone, that had some of the best characters in the franchise being introduced in that. Each of them with their own like impeccable like animations and theme. You think about in Octoreba, Courtney Scythe, and that's all of them. I think there's certainly there's no one else. I mean, I don't believe they exist either. They're not real. But yeah, just a lot of praises more. Like Madame Tussbells, like holy,
Yes.
beautiful. As in just cool peak presentation of characters. The theme kicks in, animations kick in, a little flourish that she does, and sort of a time to poke at the special contents as well. There's a lot of things in there with like the concept, which I'm allowing people to find look at once they finish the game, so there's no spoilers. It's spoiler heavy, but there's a lot of things with like comments from the developers about like concept art, or like even down to like the unused music. So if you look at like there's an unused the beta version of Tussbells' theme, and then you look at the comments to her concept art, and she was originally planned to just be like an old witch like over like a bubbling cauldron sort of thing. But then we're like, no, let's make a younger, give her a striking design for a dance of deduction, and make her theme more like eccentric and weird. And they pulled that off.
Yeah.
It's just so many really good character designs, and I can see why so many of them are. I mean, pretty much every character I know has fans of all sorts, from different types to everything, and everyone loves everyone, except Derossi. No one likes Derossi.
Fuck Derossi.
All my homies hate Derossi.
Yeah. They really do. I mean, all the other characters are great. Like Shamspeare's great fun. His dancers, which I believe you said were actually motion captured.
Again, like you can't mocap sprites very easily, but you look at it and it's like, what would this character be without it? It's just so much. You're just like, God, I want to punch you in the face, but you're beautiful. I don't want to do this. Like, I want to just keep moving, but it's funny. Just so well put together.
And then, of course, we need to touch upon the big thing, which is his glorious return, both in soundtrack and the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit!
I mean,
it is glorious. Let me tell you.
I mean, there's a bit of gripe with how it's sort of presented in the thing. Like, it's I've said it to a few folks. Like, I would have preferred had they not like lean into it so much. Like they basically tell you, like, had they just dropped it at just like, they seem familiar, and maybe leave it at that, as opposed to like just basically revealing. I mean, I feel it would have had a bit more impact, but that's kind of my only real gripe with it. But the actual presentation of it and talking about motifs and themes again, like bringing back the motif of Kazuo Asagi for his glorious return, just beautiful, especially in the cutscene it was presented in. Just it was good to it was nice. It was good to see him, and then what he actually ended up being as a character.
Yeah, I mean, his Great Return is one of those tracks that there's a fair few. There's some Xenoblade ones. I can think of some Okami ones, but this is up there where just listening to it makes me feel emotional with how it swells and how it builds up. It's such a great track and moment, especially added by the how they really went in all on voice acting and animation for that scene. And when you see Van Zieks walk out from behind, his little death day, like, oh shit, we're getting some big story moment. And although we didn't mention, but I love the sort of anime cutscenes that the first game has, as small and far between as they are. This game still did a lot with its counter moments and having them talk and going a bit more in with the voice acting, which really paid off, because I don't think this scene would be the same without it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think the animations are nice, but they did a good job of what they did with the 3D stuff in the second game. It's definitely nice still. Yeah, I think Gazma's just a great character. He's just fun. He's just great.
Yeah, it's
Very
seeing
Chad.
that growth for it, and while it's sure he being the prosecutor of 4 and 5 as he is, and seeing that sort of again the character growth and development, or just the change of it. Again, I'll consider it's the last point of it. I'll stop bringing up the motifs, but like too much now. But it's that version of it where it's like. It's that sinister new theme. It's of it like the revived prosecutor. It's just like, oh, this is his theme. Oh, bro, you good? You good? I don't like this.
Yeah.
I don't. I feel.
Becomes very antagonistic.
I feel like I don't know you anymore. But then it's still got like the emotions of his theme in there. It's like, okay, it's still him, but he's just a bit lost. We gotta help him. And
yeah,
yeah.
I just remember the moment when, because you find out that you're defending Barak von Zieks, and you're like, oh, that's cool. I mean, that's be able to defend him. That's going to be interesting. But then that moment when it sort of tricked to my mind, wait, who's the prosecutor? Oh,
yeah, it clicks all at once.
Yeah, it all comes together, and the game specifically points this out. So this isn't some wild observation from me, but it's how although he's a prosecutor, he still treats it a bit like a defense lawyer. You can tell he has that experience, and it makes it an altogether different kind of fight at the end. Especially when, by the end of it, you're both working together, essentially, which is fun. But even before that, when you're first going up against him, again, there was that level of difference between Ouchie and Von Zieks, and it's not that big, but it's still... It immediately shows you, the moment that his theme clicks in, and he starts tearing you apart, that you're like, yeah, this is Kazuma, and he is still an absolute terrifying, person in the courtroom when you're on the other side of him. This is what it felt like to be Ouchie in the last game, so...
Yeah, I do think that, like, that's something they did very well with him there at the end, is, like, sort of keeping him alongside other characters like Gregson or whatever, where they kept him as very, almost morally grey at the end in terms of whether he's on your side or not. Because, of course... He's the antagonistic prosecutor now and all that, so he's meant to be the big bad. But then at the same time, even as his theme comes in and, it still portrays him as being the bad guy, I always got that feeling that, like, he's, like you say, he's got experience as a defense lawyer. Him and Ryunosuke are basically just bouncing ideas off of each other at that point to try and find the truth. It doesn't feel like he's just trying to get, a certain verdict. Even though, his emotions do come through at times. A lot of the time when that clears up, him and Ryunosuke are just working together, essentially. Especially, when you get to the second half of... or basically when you get to Chapter 5.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see.
It's a good dynamic.
It's clear that he knows himself, because that's why he wants Ryunosuke in court with him. That's the one he wanted by his side, is because he knows
there's
that,
the respect there.
Yeah,
in that.
he will keep him in check, so he doesn't go too far in pursuing, vengeance for his father, but that he keeps it in check, and they manage to find the truth behind it. It's a great dynamic. But speaking of great dynamics, the game is afoot, guys.
Yeah.
Like, it's probably one of the biggest, like, jaw-dropping twists I've just experienced in general, really. Like, just... It's the whole... At that point in the game, you've got the whole theory. It's like, oh, is it actually... It's like, you see Wilson in the case one. It's like, wait, this guy looks like Watson. Oh, that's going to be sad when we get to see him. And you've got Iris, Wilson... and all of this sort of thing, and Sholmes doesn't say anything, but Sholmes never says anything about these things, and you sort of consign that it's like, yeah, it's just as it is, maybe Iris will find out later. And then just that reveal when his new theme kicks in, it's like, the great detective's great friend, and then that's just like, wait a minute, what? and then you look at him, and it's like, his actual outfit, his drip England suit, Dripatova. Like, I remember, like, Kai absolutely freaking out when he saw him initially, and I had the same reaction. And I actually also hunted down the Drip Goku theme to play at the time, because it was just like, wow. And then you look at him and it's like, this guy, he's emulating the look of, like, the traditional look of Watson in that look, with, like, the hat and the mustache, and it just... And it's like, wow, okay, this is a amazing, cool twist. It'd be cool. See what comes of this. And then they run off, and we never see him again. And it's like, it'll be a shame. And then, you go into the trial, and, well, that's when, like, the chapter ends, and you go straight into, the last chapter, which is just the entire trial itself. And then it's like, a bit of an interlude, what are we going to do here? And then there's an investigation, and you realise that you're playing as Eugen Mikitova, and it's like, oh, okay, let's see how this ends up. And then, no more games now. And
yep.
Peak. Just peak.
And then he starts tap dancing.
Like,
yes.
Yeah.
You're doing a dance of deduction. You realise there's no option to check anything. You're being certain of the answer, but you are certain of the answer because it's right in front of you. There's a screen shatter, the spotlight, and you are just like, I don't know. I don't pog much in real life, but that was probably like I was just.
Yeah.
Oh.
It might be the best moment in the game, of both games, to be honest. It really might be.
Agreed.
Just
yeah.
like that entire sequence of like, just that entire tune as well. Was
Listen to it so much.
it's just beautiful.
I think it's my favourite theme in the whole game. Just how like upbeat it is, and sort of it sort of shows how they go in full swing. Like we've talked about how good the Dance of Deductions are as is. It's quite good to correct Herlock and go through all this sort of thing. But the fact that in that final one they do just go all out, and it's like you've got the theme playing along with it, you've got the tap dancing, they're just going in full swing, and it's like, this is what the Dance of Deductions have been leading up to. This is the true version of it. Yeah, it's a very satisfying feeling to have been doing the Dance of Deductions the whole series, and then that is the final one where it's the perfected version of it. It's a really, really nice feeling. So alongside the music, just such a key
rewarding,
moment.
satisfying.
And it calls back to the first one,
yeah,
I'd like to point out. It's a very nice callback as well, so plays into the overall trial as well. Like it's not just like a one-off thing. It's really, really solid.
Yeah, it just all comes together.
It is.
Yeah, it's just...
And I mean that's the game is the second game. It's called Resolve, and that's what it is. It really does resolve things perfectly. How everything, small details from the first game. I mean, in the final case, you're trying to figure out what was the reason for Giselle Brett killing Wilson, which was the first game, the first case of the first game. And that's
eventually.
Yeah, and exactly, it took its time, but that's really how things come together. How Ryunosuke finally sort of decides that he wants to become a lawyer, and he's going to go back to Japan, and just the way things end, it really is. Again, it resolved things perfectly. It's the perfect title for the game because that sums up exactly what it does, and. Man, such a good game. I feel like that pretty much sums up everything we've been saying in the last hour and a bit, but yeah, it's good. Do you guys, we're sort of reaching on time here, but do you guys have any sort of final thoughts on the game you want to say? Any quick things you didn't get to mention you really want to bring up?
I guess one thing is like, this is something for Resolve in particular, because the first game was a little more introductory. But how the second game in cases 2, 3, 4, and 5, how basically all of them have every mystery is like 2 in 1. You know what I mean? You've got the thing in chapter 2 with Olive, Shamspear, Saseki, and figuring out the other crime that's happened. You've got the thing with the professor in chapter 3, and then of course 4 and 5 are the culmination alongside Gregson's murder. And the fact that they are able to do that consistently, and on top of that, have it all like weave together and all be relevant. They very easily could have done 2 cases in one there, and they feel completely separate and it feels wrong. But the way they weaved it together so perfectly was just very impressive to me, like from a perspective of creating a mystery, because it's not easy to do that kind of storytelling and make those types of mysteries. The fact that they were able to do that multiple times across the story was just really impressive to me.
Yeah, not just through story, but I mean they have to make it work through gameplay as well, where you have to be the one to figure things out and present it. And I can't imagine the amount of work it must have taken to get all that pretty much perfectly like they did. You're definitely right.
Yeah, the creative minds they must have had to weave all that together. It's really impressive.
It's being as it is, it's sort of it's always hard to sort of telling it to start from here, because it's such a great place to dive in, because it's how self-contained it is, and being as distant of a prequel as it is, it doesn't affect the rest of the franchise. But it's also just like a bit just okay. Start with the absolute peak of everything and like the pinnacle that everything has been building up to, of like, you know, the quality of it all, like the peak of the game mechanics and the story writing and how it's all brought together. And yeah, I mean the other ones are good too, I guess. It's just it's a bit difficult going back to the older ones, honestly, without the polish it has. But as you said, just it's so satisfying to see it all come together and just come to just a really good example of the Ace Attorney franchise in general. Like just all in, it's not necessarily a concentrated package, but it kind of is. It's just all of it in one big satisfying story, and it's just satisfying, honestly. Which is the franchise, the entire franchise in general. Like, it's engaging and satisfying. Just the amount of times I've seen people, even just in the tutorial case of the first Ace Attorney, just when cornered kicks in, and you were just like, the amount of people I've seen, like, I remember my friend tried it one time. They were like, you know, hunched over my 3DS, just like really, like eyes just like glaring. But I see the eyes like dies. I was like, that's like the moment when the music kicks in, when you've got the pursuit playing, all the way from the first game all the way up to, you know, the grand pursuit right at the end, where it's just. I remember in the special logs, the special content, when you look at the grand pursuit, and the comment there is just like, we just wanted a moment of just yes, just the player to go yes exclamation point. And yeah, it worked. It's just a really fun thing, and it's a very good package in general, really.
Yeah, it merges all those elements that we've talked about at length here: the gameplay, the story, the characters, the soundtrack, and they've all, you know, they're all great on their own, but it's the way that they blend together and work and accentuate each other and help each other that really makes it such a great game. I mean, yeah, it really is. But I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm sure we could talk longer. We could break down every case and be here for many hours,
a long
no
time.
doubt. Yeah. But we've got to call it somewhere. So that is going to be it for the video. Thank you so much, guys, for talking through this with me, and thank you, Oliver, particularly for coming on here and doing it with us. It would not have been the same without you. So thank you so much for coming along.
Thank you for having me. I feel honoured to be here. You know, just good folks talking about good stuff. I mean, it's what you do anyway. But it's nice to be part of it as well. I was listening to you were doing the intro, and it's just like, oh wait, I'm in this one. Yeah.
Watching it live now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you very much helped me when I was playing the game in terms of like explaining, you know, whether it be like names or lore behind things. It was very nice to sort of get a better understanding through that. So it's very helpful.
I will say, like, I guess thanks to you for like streaming and like showing it to everyone. Also, I guess giving me another playthrough, and it's nice. It's always fun watching the visual levels. It's you wouldn't think so. They're not like the most engaging gameplay necessarily, but it's because it's so open to bring what you want. Like, I've seen people just play the game silently, and it's just like, it works. I can read as they're doing, but you put a lot of effort into it. Obviously, with all the accents, as good as or not so good as some were. But and then
what are you talking about?
It's the entertaining aspect again. Like looking back through the DMs right now, where it's just like, this was at that point. Yeah, it's very entertaining. It's you wouldn't think like, oh, it's a visual novel. How fun could it be sharing, like, reading with other people? But you know, it's a fun bit of story time, isn't it?
It's the best goddamn book club you've ever seen.
I mean, yeah.
Best... Damn right. Oh yeah. It has been really good fun. And you know, definitely, Oliver, will like to have you back sometime. I mean, hopefully not as late as whenever Final Fantasy VII Remake gets loose, because, dear God, as you said, that could be a while. But at some other point,
I'd be happy to be back.
We'd like to get you back on
nice
main
talking
podcast.
Anyway, and just dudes talking about things that they like to talk about.
That's what we do here. And Kai, speaking of places where you do that, where else can people find you, Kai?
Yeah, twitch.tv/Fascurreyn. I'll be over there. I'm doing non-Great Ace Attorney stuff now on the most part.
It's free.
But It's not all over. I am going to do the odd stream or two that still have a focus on Great Ace Attorney, because it's one of those series where there's a couple series in my life that I've really enjoyed where it's like the characters were so good that I am now going to like repurpose these characters in like a ton of different ways. You know, this is definitely one of those games. So yeah, look forward to seeing more stuff like tier lists and all the bonus content and all that. It'll be coming at some point.
Absolutely. And stay tuned to BunchaJokahs for more content in the future. We'll, of course, anytime there's more Great Ace Attorney news, or Ace Attorney news, we'll be covering it. Hopefully, we get some new stuff coming down the line in the future. But also, I mean, we're in E3 season right now. We've got Capcom presentation. You know, we've got things coming on.
A few days from now, this could age very well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hopefully.
That would be perfect. Yeah. If it can line up as perfectly as that interview with Sky did, where Pyro was added in Smash like 2 days after, you know,
yes, please.
Maybe we have a gift. You never know. But of course, well, I mean that already have happened, but we'll be covering all that kind of stuff as it comes out, and different gameplay videos and discussions in the coming months as well. So stay tuned to that, be it on our YouTube channel, or you could find audio-only versions on Spotify and other podcasting sites. But until then, take care and goodbye. Farewell.
Bye.
See ya.